Is that music? Oh my God, I love it here. Oh my God. My name is Eddie. I'm an alcoholic. Is my name up there? What? I'm totally coming back. It's a long drive. I drove up from Hollywood. I had to circumnavigate the bowl to get here. I went over Mulholland and then dropped in and just like 101 straight up. It took me a little over an hour and 20 minutes. But I had to do it, and I'll tell you why. There's a little story behind this. So, first of all, I want to thank Randy for asking me to come and share with you guys tonight. Randy and I went to junior high school together, and then high school, and we hadn't talked, we hadn't really had any conversations, and he hit me up on Facebook. He must have saw something I had on there that I was sober, and he said, "You're sober?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm sober." I don't really post much about that kind of stuff on Facebook, but maybe you saw something. But then he he goes, "I remember when we were in high school in Esperanza, and you almost ran me over with your car in the parking lot." I was probably stoned, and I was like, "Oh my God, really?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I thought you were a dick." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is like a perfect opportunity for a ninth step, because this is what you taught me, that we like they still come up. There's still things that I don't remember." And so I'm like, "Oh my God, Randy, I'm so sorry." I go, I have a spiritual way of living now. It's totally different, and I'm sober." And he basically came out to me too and said that he was sober, and well, you know what I mean. And so I was like, so we started talking, and it was fantastic because like we hadn't really talked in a very long time, and it's great to see you. Look fantastic, and he played it perfectly, because then like a few like days later, a few weeks later, he like pops back onto Messenger and he says, "So do you do a pitch? Do you do like a 45-minute pitch?" And I went, "Yeah, I've talked in meetings before, yeah." And then he goes, "Oh, perfect." And I had to say yes, because I almost ran him over with my car. So well played, sir. Well played. It's excellent work. As I said before, I am an alcoholic. I have a sobriety date. Are you ready for this? It's June 4th, 1987. So, God willing, and the creek don't rise, and I don't stop at a bar on the way back to Hollywood tonight, I'll have 36 years tomorrow. And thank you. It's a personal best. I was not going to stay 36 minutes, to tell you the truth. I came in here to get the heat off. I did, as I'll get into in a minute, I did have a moment of clarity, but I ultimately had no plans on staying as long as I did, and what happened was my life just kept getting better and better and better, as many of us know. I want to congratulate Thea, Tony, and Colette. Happy birthday to the chip takers, to the medallion takers, the medallion stallion. You're lucky I didn't come back up here. I'll come back up here next week and get a hug and a medallion from you, sir. Just be warned if I show up. It can happen. So let's see, where am I? Okay, so I have a sobriety date, June 4th. As I mentioned, I have a sponsor. His name is Charlie C. And oddly enough, Randy and I also share a grant sponsor in Bob R., who is our grant sponsor, which is, I love that man. He's great. They're all, it's good. And I sponsor guys. And I go to a lot of meetings. My home group is the Pacific Group. We meet in Culver City on Wednesdays. It's 600 alcoholics screaming at each other, basically. But it's great. I love it. It's home. It's like my family. I've come to love them. I love that group. I love the structure of that group. I like my AA a little rough, because I don't really have a structured life. I work for myself. I kind of do my own thing. So I like a nice structured meeting. It feels at home to me. And that group has taken me in about 12 years ago. I started to go to that meeting, and it's been my home group ever since. And I love it. I was born and raised on the mean streets of Yorba Linda, down there in Orange County, land of gracious living. It says so on the sign when you're pulling in. There was about 16,000 people, I think, when we got there. It was very very quiet. Lots of horses and horse trails and orange trees, and And it was pretty. It was pretty quiet. It was pretty quiet. I had a great life there. My parents moved out there because they wanted to raise their kids in a very suburban kind of place, which was great. They wanted to have they wanted us to have a great life. My father was a probation officer for Orange County. I know, right? It's like. Oof. My mom worked for a company called Autonetics, which became Rockwell, which went on to be Northrop or something. They were very instrumental in putting the men on the moon and the Apollo space mission. That was kind of their thing. And we were very proud of that. That was a big industry down there. And I went to school. I did all the things that we did growing up. We came in when the streetlights came on. I had a couple sisters right behind me. One was 2 years behind me, and the other one was 6 or 7 years behind me. And we just had a good time growing up. There was always booze in the house. We always had parties. I come from an Irish Catholic family. There was always some kind of baptism or first communion or celebration going on. There was always booze flowing around. I didn't really partake in that, but I did see a difference in my parents whenever they were drinking. They just kind of changed. They just became, happy, joyous, and free right in front of my eyes. And it was kind of great. And I was like, I never really put two and two together. I was never drawn to whatever it is they were doing to get to where they were. But I knew that it looked fun, right? And they looked comfortable and happy and laughing. And it wasn't from a place of manufactured. They were having a good time. And I didn't know how to do that growing up. I was a little awkward, and I was a little self-conscious and self-aware, and I was a leg shaker under my desk, and that leg just going, just nervous, and had a lot of friends in very different types of groups growing up in high school, and in junior high, I should say, because I just didn't want, I didn't want any trouble, I didn't want any trouble at all. So I just made people laugh. That was my thing, and I was very, I was insecure, but I don't know that I had that outward appearance of that. But I was wound up really, really tight. I took my first drink with my best friend. We went on a family vacation. We went up to Northern California, this little town called Redding, California, and there was a ranch up there called the Rock and T-Bar Ranch. And we went to a big old Labor Day party up there. My dad and my mom and the neighborhood kids. And one of the neighborhood kids was my best friend, Robbie. And Robbie and I had just turned 13, and we decided that we were going to start smoking and drinking. I don't know why. We just decided that we were going to start smoking and drinking. So that's what we did. We got in this motorhome. We drove up there, and this party was huge. It was like 300 parents, and adults running around, a bunch of kids. My cousins were all there. We were having a great time. And then when the party started going, there was a band on the stage, and they cooked the pig, and everyone was doing all the stuff that they do. And Robbie and I snuck into the main house, and we got into the bar, and we started pouring shots. I did not know what I was doing. I had no idea, but I knew that I needed to get there. So I did, I remember what it was. It's kind of crazy. I did 3 shots of bourbon, 3 7-7s, 2 gin tonics, and a beer. I know, I overshot the mark. In succession, because it didn't happen quick enough. It didn't happen quick enough. I did one, I was like, well, that didn't do anything. And I just went to town. And I overshot the mark. I got up on stage. I started entertaining the crowd. I was singing songs. The band was on the break. I was dancing. The parents were clapping. Isn't he cute? They knew what was going on. And I think they kind of gave us some time to, they kind of gave us some time to play around because they knew that we were going to feel like crap the next day and probably not do it again. And I think that's kind of the way parents did things back then. I feel like they just were like, let them do it. They'll never do it again. But I got to tell you, there was a time in there when it was really working for me. I felt really good. For the first time, I felt very, very comfortable in my own skin. My sponsor describes it the best. He says, I like to be there, where everything is just fine. Nothing you can say bothers me. Nothing I think bothers me. I'm ready to go. Everything is good, real good, and I'm having a good time. I was there for about maybe 30 minutes, and then it was a mess. I got very sick, and I spent the rest of the night on a welding wagon, passed out under the stars. And I threw my guts up, and that was it. I knew I was probably going to do it again, just for that feeling of being there. I knew I was going to do it. I just didn't know how to do it because I was 13 years old. It's hard to get It's hard to drink, when you're 13. It's hard to find it. Folks didn't have it in the house. My dad kept his liquor cabinet locked. So I just, I ran right to other things. I ran to anything that could help me not feel. I did not want to feel. I describe it this way. I don't like the way my earth suit feels when I'm wearing it. I don't like the way my skin feels. I'm not comfortable in my own skin. I don't like when I just don't like it. And I found other things that would help me get there. I describe it like this. I know that this is a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not somebody that talks about, outside issues. I think that's code for I don't know what. I did drugs. I did a lot of drugs. As my friend Eileen Waterstone would say, I did a lot of drugs it's easy to get. It's easier to get when you're a kid. I was just wanting to get away from all the feelings of things. And what happened was, as we moved on through school, I had opportunities more on the weekends to drink. And I took those opportunities. I got a girlfriend. I got a girlfriend, and we'll get to that in a minute. I got a girlfriend in high school, and she was a senior in high school, and she loved to hang out at the frat parties, and I was all about it, and I went with her all the time. We went there to Cal State Fullerton, and we went to the frat parties, and frat parties, they have kegs there, kegs of beer, all the time, just beer everywhere. And I sat on top of that keg, and I just got that thing pumped up, and I was a bartender, and I was pouring the beer on the weekends at the frat parties, and I was passing them out, and I always had a full glass myself, and I felt so good. I loved hanging out with the older kids. I loved being with the older crowd. I never really identified with anybody in my class. I just liked to party with the adults. I wanted to be with them having a good time, and that's what I did. I am very obsessed and very concerned when I'm drinking about supply chain. When the keg would run out, I would get a little nervous. It would freak me out. I do not like the feeling of not knowing that I'm not going to have any more of whatever, any more to drink, any more to use, anything. I just can't. I need to know that there's always something there. I would go later on when I was bar drinking. I'd always stop at the liquor store and throw a 12-pack or better in the trunk of my car for when I got home, because there's that crazy time between 2 and 6 a.m. when they don't sell alcohol. I know, it's the worst. I get anxiety thinking about it. I can't. So I'm in high school. I'm doing the thing. I'm partying with a girlfriend, and we're having a good time. And my parents start going through a hideous divorce, and it was ugly. It was not good. My father was out and about all the time. My mom was not dealing with it very well. My mom ended up leaving my dad, and I moved in with my father, and he just wanted to party. He wanted to do his thing. My dad is not an alcoholic, because this is a self-diagnosed disease, but I will say this: my father has a very serious relationship with alcohol. He loves it. He loves the drink. And he was a bar drinker, and he would go out and he would drink at the bar, and I would be home alone with, and he would always give me money. I'd had a job at the time, and I was just partying. I was having people over. I was, doing all, ditching school, barely getting through high school, barely got through 12, barely graduated, and it was bad. He was still a probation officer. I remember one time I was on my moped, with a cigarette hanging in my mouth, and I got pulled over by the cops and for ditching school. And my dad was in the back seat of the cop car because he was checking on one of his parolees up in the hills. I mean, imagine the odds of you getting pulled over by a cop and your dad's in the back seat. I mean, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for everybody. So what happened was that after I graduated from high school, I moved up to Northern California. My uncle and my aunt saw what was going on at home, and they decided that they wanted to bring me into their house. They wanted to give me a job. My uncle owned a gold refinery. He stripped gold off circuit boards and sold it and reclaimed the gold from the circuit boards and sold it. And he needed somebody to work in the warehouse, and he asked me if I'd like to come up, and he gave me a bed. He gave me a home. There was three squares. And I had my cousins live there, and one of them gave up their room for me, and they gave me a home, and there was structure there, and it kind of felt nice for the first time in a long time. And I'd get up in the morning, I would go to work, and we would strip the gold. But Uncle Johnny was a daily drinker. I'm 18 years old at this point. Uncle Johnny's a daily drinker, and he does not like to drink alone. And I was there for him. I wanted to be his drinking buddy, and I was. I became Uncle Johnny's drinking buddy, and that was when my daily drinkings really kicked in. I started drinking every day. I loved it. I knew exactly at 12 o'clock I'd hear that first Bud Heavy pop, and I knew that it was time, and I would just go to the refrigerator, and we would drink, during the day, strip the gold off these circuit boards during the day, and then pour gold bars at night and sell them, and just party it up, and it was good. It was working. It was working. I was feeling good. I had a job, and then I couldn't function anymore. I started not being able to show up to work. Somebody introduced me to cocaine. It was the 80s, right? So, yeah, and when you get to the cocaine part of your story, it's almost over, right? Same, guilty, yeah, it's all bad. Somebody introduced me to cocaine. What I loved about, I liken it to this. Alcohol was the love of my life. It was the most dependable substance that I did. I loved alcohol. I loved everything about it. It worked. It was the love of my life, but I did have some friends with benefits like cocaine and weed and pills and acid and everything else. I did a lot of other things. But so yeah, I couldn't get to work anymore. I couldn't, I was extremely paranoid. I lost tons of weight. I looked fantastic. And then, until I didn't. And then started wrecking cars, and my uncle had to fire me. He had to fire me. He had to let me go. He rescued me from a hideous situation, and I basically spat on that. I just thought, this isn't what I want to do. I want to party. It was the most important thing to me. And I left. I had to leave after 2.5 years. I couldn't support myself anymore. I was working odd jobs, Pizza Hut, a couple other places, just trying to stay above water, and I couldn't. And I came home with my tail between my legs back to Orange County. And my grandmother gave me a place to live. She rented me her condo for next to nothing. And my family was always bailing me out, And what happened was I lived there with my not with my grandmother, but I lived there in that place, and I got a roommate. And it was just still going on. Drinking every day, partying every day. I tried dealing. I tried doing everything to keep my head above water. I was basically working restaurant jobs, and I was just drinking in the bars. I was in the bars every night. I would leave the bar. I'd leave my house, and I'd stop at one of two places. There was a Circle K and a 7-Eleven, and every night I would go to the opposite one and put another 12-pack in the back of the car for that weird time between 2 and 6. And then I would go to the bar, and I would drink all night there, and then I would come back, and then I would usually stay up for 2 or 3 days, or sometimes not. Sometimes I would just, if I didn't have anything to make me stay awake, I would just drink myself to sleep. And I was unable to function. I was unable to hold a job. I was about to get evicted from my grandmother's place. I was not functioning. I smelled bad. I was picking imaginary bugs out of my skin. I was not speaking to my family anymore. My mother, who I had been very, very abusive towards, she was my emotional punching bag, and in addition, I threatened her with violence often. I'm not proud of that, but I'm here to tell you the truth, and that's what happened. And it got ugly, and I ended up with a bunch of bench warrants, because when I'm partying, nothing matters. I don't like to open mail, and what comes in the mail are tickets, and if you don't deal with your tickets, you get bench warrants, and you get failure to appears. I got pulled over on the way home from the bar one night. I don't know how I didn't get a DUI that night, but God, I should have. I know I was well over the limit, but they brought me in. They brought me in on a warrant. Did not give me a DUI. I don't know how I got through that one. Spent a few days in Fullerton. Fullerton jail was there, and mom and dad bailed me out. And then the second time that happened, they did not bail me out. They let me stay in there. My dad and mom, in between my jail stays, my mom went to Al-Anon. So, she didn't let me out of there. She was smart. And I got to tell you, I got to credit that program for saving my life, because if she would have continued to bail me out, I'm not sure you would have me as a speaker tonight. I don't know if that would happen. But that program saved my life, in that she did not bail me out, and I spent like a week in there. And it was during the time when my dad was running for Orange County Sheriff, and I'm a junior, so yeah, it wasn't good. So his opponent is saying things like, you can't even control your son. How are you going to run the county? And he lost that election, and blamed me, and that's and I was not good. I was not the ideal son, to say the least. I didn't really care though. It was all about me. I wanted to figure it all out. I wanted to just keep partying, man. I just wanted to keep partying. And what happened was things were getting uglier, and I was becoming more self-loathing, and I wanted to die. I got to the point where I couldn't do this anymore. Alcohol and just had stopped working. I don't know why I had this moment, but you'll hear it explained a lot in these rooms. I had this moment of clarity, and it went something like this. I had spent the better part of a month in my room, and I was, I'd scraped the resins out of my bong, and I did some carpet farming, as with you 80s kids, you know carpet farming. Did some carpet farming and drank the last bit of booze in the house, and Randy's laughing, he's done it. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk after the meeting. So so I don't know, I sat there, and for a moment, I was out of my body. That's the best I could. I saw myself for what I was for a brief, shining moment. I saw myself as an alcoholic. I didn't know that's what it was. I just knew that I was dependent on alcohol at that point in my life. And it just dawned, for the longest time, it was everybody else. It was my mom, it was my dad. If he would just get off my damn back, or if she would just leave me alone, and enough with the church crap, I just, if she would just leave me alone. It was always somebody else. I never took responsibility for anything that was happening in my life, ever, until I came here. And what happened was I was back in my body as quickly as I was out of it, and I said a prayer, and it went something like this. I said, God, please don't ever let me feel this dependent on something again. That's it. It was of God that I had long since given up. I had no idea that there was anybody even listening, because I prayed to him every night to not wake up. I did not want to wake up. I was so done. That morning, my mom called me and said, look, I just found out my insurance will cover you 80% if you want to go into treatment. And I heard this voice say yes. It was my voice, but I do not remember making the sound. That's the best I could describe it. I heard my voice say yes. And I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, that was my voice. It just said yes. I've never agreed to anything that woman's ever said, and I just said yes. And she came and picked me up. I had one last hurrah. I had to have one more party. And I got down there, and I had a big party at the house, and I invited a bunch of my lower companions to come over, and we whooped it up. And everyone showed up with all the party favors, and there was all kinds of booze. I don't know where they all came from, but they were there. Excuse me. And my mom came and picked me up the next day, and I was huddled in the garage. I'll never forget. I was huddled in the garage in my underwear, sipping on a bottle of Miller High Life, and in a very hot garage in the corner, just scared. And the reason I was scared, because that party that I had the night before, I could not get drunk. I could not get high. Nothing was working. I couldn't get there. And it stopped working. And that scared me. She picked me up. I went to Care Unit of Orange. I spent 45 days there, flopping around in detox. 45 days, so I redecorated my room. It's like, I don't know why, but I was there for a very long time, and I'd love to tell you that was the end of it, and that I never had to pick up again after that, but that's a big fat lie, because I got loaded my very first pass. I actually brought some weed back onto the unit and got a bunch of people loaded, because I wasn't really sure if I really wanted this. And I regret that so much, because, God, I don't know where those guys are today that I got loaded with, but I pray to God they're okay. But what happened was I started a big fat lie about my sobriety date, because you guys, were very, very big on your medallions and on your medallion stallions. And so I started lying about my sobriety date. I just, because I wanted to be like you guys. I didn't want anyone to not like me, and I wanted to, be okay. So I would lie about my sobriety date. I kept raising my hand, or I kept not raising my hand as a newcomer, and taking dirty chips, and doing this whole thing the way I thought it should be done, clearly, and not the way it's done. And I don't know what happened. I think it was a result of, after I got out of the care unit, I went to a recovery home in Laguna Beach, and I went to a lot of meetings. That was a requirement down there, and they had us go to 2 meetings a day, 3 if we weren't working, and my home group down there was the South Coast Speakers Meeting. on Wednesday night. It's a really good meeting. Chuck Chamberlain started that meeting a long time ago, and there were some amazing people in that meeting when I started. Dr. Paul, who wrote the chapter on acceptance in our book, was there. He and Maxine were there. He was a very, very nice man and was very kind to me when I was new. He shook my hand and he gave me his card and took my calls. And guys like Tommy Whalen and Johnny Ackerlin and Johnny Crean and Gloria Whalen and all those guys, they were down there. And I know those names may not mean anything to you, but those are my heroes. And I kept going to these meetings, but I had this lie, man. I was lying. And I don't know what happened, but I was at a meeting one night, and this guy got honest about his sobriety date. And I was inspired, and when they asked for newcomers, my hand went up. And I went, I'm a big fat liar. I'm a liar. I've been lying, and I'm scared. I thought that I was one of those people that was constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself, and I thought I was going to die from this thing. And for some reason, I think I caught this thing in the rooms. That's what happened. I caught alcoholism in the rooms. I completely surrendered at that point, and I got honest. And I wanted what you had. I wanted the laughter like you have in this room. This room is great, by the way. I mean, this is an amazing place to talk. I'm totally coming back. I loved it, and I had a great time. And I got a commitment at my home group, and it was this. And my sponsor got me. I got a sponsor, and we worked the steps. And my sponsor got me this commitment at this Wednesday night meeting, and I was the speaker taper. I would record the speaker when he talked, which meant I had to sit there and set up the sound system, and it forced me to listen to these guys come down from the Pacific group and talk. And that's where I got the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, was listening to those guys come down, and they drove, a lot of them drove, much further than I drove tonight to come down and share with us down there. And I got the message. Down there, and it felt good. I felt like I was a part of. I had that commitment for 5 years. And I decided early on in my recovery, in my sobriety, that I wanted to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I thought, I want to become a drug and alcoholism counselor. That's what I want to do. So I went to school and I got a certification for drug and alcoholism counseling, and then I became a bartender. Because it pays better and it's a lot easier to get people drunk than it is to get them sober. And I like the easier, softer way. How much time do I have, by the way? Do we know? Is that, so I have, there's a countdown. We got to play this. So I became a bartender, and I know it sounds weird, it's crazy. I had 3 or 4 years of sobriety. There was a bar down there in Laguna Beach called the Boom Boom Room, and I was a security guard. You know it? Anybody know it? Oh, it's great. Oh, yeah. You didn't party at the Boom, you're crazy. So it's right on the beach, and I got a job there. And there was other sober guys working there, and there was other sober people working there, and we had a lot of fun. It was great, and I talked to my sponsor about it, and I was really solid in my first step. I do not recommend bartending when you're new, but I had conceded to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic, and I knew this about myself, and I was going to a lot of meetings, and things were great, and I got this job at the bar, and I loved it. I had such a good time, and I had my days free to do what I wanted to do. And then then somebody came down from a bar up in West Hollywood and scouted me, and they said, we would love for you to come work at our bar in West Hollywood. And I was just like, okay, let's go. So I went up to West Hollywood, and I got a job up in West Hollywood, and the money was ridiculous. It was like it was a cash bar, and it's just like I'm working without my shirt, and I'm just making all this cash, and I'm sober, and I'm getting all these phone numbers, and I'd arrived, the promises have come true, I felt so good until I didn't. Because what happens when you're a bartender and you're working at night is you don't get to go to mainstream meetings. You don't get to, and 7 o'clock meetings are way too early, and those noon meetings, well, that's breakfast. How are you going to get to those, right? When you're waking up at, noon because you've been up until 4 in the morning, slinging cocktails. So what happened was slowly but surely started chipping away at my recovery, my program, and it suffered. And I tell you that because I don't want anyone in here to have to go through what I did, because it was not pretty. I've lived a lot of life in 36 years, and 35 years and 464 days, or 364 days. But what happened was that things got really awkward. I got very, very uncomfortable in my own skin, and a lot of the things that the steps that I had worked the steps, in those first few years, a lot of those things started creeping back, and I started working the steps backwards. I stopped working with others. I stopped daily meditating. I stopped taking inventories. I stopped doing the things that we were taught in here. You know, those amends, I'll get to them in a minute. You know, that list, what list? You know, all the things, just worked them all the way backwards. And I started getting very restless, very irritable and discontent behind the bar. I started getting angry. All of a sudden, the anger issues that I had, because I'm a Jekyll and Hyde drunk, but I'm more like Dr. Jekyll when I'm drinking, and then Hyde when I'm sober. I have anger issues when I'm sober. Drinking. I'm fine. I just want to cuddle, right? So, what happened was I ended up getting very angry, and somebody at the bar moved in on one of my customers, and I was having a lot of fear about money, and I was just angry, and I wasn't eating because, like, you know, I'm working in West Hollywood, and I had to work out all the time. I'm not eating, and I'm shredded, and I hit him. I just hit the guy. I hit him, and I had double-digit sobriety, and I'm beating people up at work, and I can't let you know enough how sober I am while I'm doing it, which is just so gross when you think about it. It was so gross. I had no business. You know, I certainly wasn't a vision for you. Let's just put it that way. And I felt like I started to feel like I did when I was out there. I didn't know what to do. I was very, very emotional. You know, I had all this like stuff going on. I thought, well, I think I could probably just deal with this by taking an acting class. That was my first thought, which is, you would think I would go back to a meeting, but no, I went to an acting class. I know, it's dumb. So, and it gets dumber before it gets better. But so what happened was, I'm in class and I'm crushing it, you know, and I'm going to the gym and I'm feeling really good about myself, and I'm maybe hitting a meeting a week now, and one meeting a week. And I remember this kid in the class, and he was this scrawny little kid, and he got this movie, and he was gonna be a superhero and all this stuff, and I was like so jealous and angry. I'm like, where's mine? And he's off, you know, doing his movie and playing the superhero. And my first gig, I was the hero in a Dr. Scholl's wart remover commercial. And, you know, you think I'd be grateful, you know, for the gig, but of course I'm angry because I'm working out and I just want to be cool and all this stuff, and I'm fixing up the outsides, and I'm beating people up at work. And then he goes off to make his second movie, and there's a sequel, and he's swinging from buildings, and I'm just getting more angry and more angry. And then I get my next gig is I'm the new old face of crystal meth. I'm like on the sides of billboards, it's like Joey in Friends, remember? So I'm on the sides of billboards, on trucks. I lost me to meth and my big picture, and I'm like, I have double-digit sobriety. It was gross. I'm so mad. I'm just mad. And I ended up hitting a bottom. I ended up hitting an emotional bottom. I got fired from that job for what they described as flash anger. I was volatile. I was a mess. And I lost that job, and they fired me. Thank God they fired me. Because I ran right back to you, and I said, this is not working. I am not an example. I don't feel good in my own skin anymore. I lost something. You know, chasing the things, chasing the stuff. You know, when am I going to get mine? You know, the whole thing about the promises, it doesn't talk about, the fear of financial insecurity is not about like getting rich. It's about the fear. And I had a lot of fear going on. And I started coming back to meetings, and I got a sponsor again, and he was serious, man. He was serious about the steps, and I loved it. He was down in Laguna Beach, and he took me through the steps again, and he got me involved with his sobriety, all of his sponsees. We did a lot of stuff together. We did Christmases together. We did service work together. We went to a lot of meetings. He taught me about meditation. Oh my God, he taught me how to shut this thing down. It just wants to go, man. It just wants to think. It just wants to go, and it doesn't want to stop. And sometimes I can get onto something in my head at night before all this, like a pit bull on a pig's ear, man. It's just like, yetta, and I just couldn't stop it. And he taught me about meditation, and things slowly started getting better, and I started feeling better I started feeling better in my own skin again. I had forgotten I'd forgotten this is what happens when I don't show up and come here. When I don't drive, all the way up and talk to a bunch of great-looking people like yourselves, and when I don't go to my home group and and set up the literature. I just set the literature. I don't even sell literature at that meeting. I just get to set it up, and I'm happy. I'm so happy for that commitment. I can't tell you. I had anxiety because I wasn't sure. We just got a new secretary, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get it again, but I got it anyway. It's cutthroat over there, man. I'm going to tell you. It's cutthroat. Yeah, it's good. So things started getting better. I started feeling better in my own skin. I started feeling that thing. It came back. I didn't have to drink. To get that. I just had to. I had to hit a bottom. I had to hit another bottom in sobriety. I think I had 17 years at that time. I just was chasing the wrong thing, man. I was chasing the wrong thing. My experience is if I take care of Alcoholics Anonymous takes care of me. I don't have to work that hard. I really don't. The joy I get out of being in the rooms and spending time with my guys, and we do a Friday night meeting every Friday together, and we have such a good time, man. It's kind of like this. We have a lot of laughs, we have a good time, and I love it. I got tired. I kept acting. I'll talk a little bit about what I do, not because it's that glamorous, because it's really not. But it's fun. I have a good time, and I kept acting. What happened was I got tired of waiting for the phone to ring, and I started my own little production company. And I didn't know anything about what I was doing, and I just kept going to meetings, and I kept. I kept applying, I got into action basically, and I just learned, I applied the things I learned in here to my business and to my production company. And I treated people the way I wanted to be treated, and I was honest. And we started making some movies. We started making a couple movies, and a couple of them got some good notes and some notoriety, and nothing. It's independent films, but it was so much fun. I had such a good time, And then one of the little films became a feature film, and that was amazing. And then we started doing a bunch of commercial work, and I don't know, we just ended up having a great time. And my little production company, I've had it for 12 years now, and done well. It's been good, it's been good, and it's allowed me to have more time, to go to meetings and to do things I love to do and spend time with my family. And that's really, really important to me. My parents and I are good. We're really good. We have a great, relationship now. My sisters and I, we're all very, very close, and we love each other. And I love being in that family now. And I didn't like that. I was embarrassed of them before. I was like, I didn't want to have any part of that. It's been incredible. I can't complain. I'm so overpaid with what, as opposed to trying to chase all that stuff. It's just I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm very grateful for this meeting, and to have my name back on the thing. Oh, it's gone. It's gone. Is my time up? It's almost up. I'm going to tell you this quick little story about a few years, about 4 or 5 years ago. My niece graduated from high school, and I flew back for her graduation. And I fly a lot, and I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were taking off. And as we were taking off, right as the plane was leaving the ground, there was a very loud bang on the left-hand side of the plane and a bright orange flash, and the cabin shook. And I had never heard that before. And it scared me, and it scared everybody on board. And what happened was there was a flight attendant who was trying to climb up the seats because we were on an incline, and she was climbing up the seats because she needed to look out the window. But I didn't need to look out the window because the guy next to the window on the other side had a cell phone, and he was videoing the fire coming out of the engine of this plane. And I had this sinking feeling that it's a wrap, we're done, and I felt like for the first time in a long time that I was going to die, and I was scared, and I remember a lot of people were praying, and there was a lot of screaming, and I held the person's hand next to me, and I just remember just how afraid I was. And obviously, the plane landed. I was so grateful that to get off that plane that I can't tell you. I was really, really grateful that I lived. And what happened was I had this moment, and I tried to find the teachable moment in everything that happens in my life, and I couldn't figure out why in the hell would would I have to go through that? What could I possibly have learned from that experience? And at the end of the day, I sat there at the airport before I boarded another plane, because you have to get right back on a plane, which is, it's not, So everyone else is at the bar, right? And I can't drink, and I'm sober, so I'm like, oh my God. But I realized at that moment, the teachable moment for me was that had that been my time, had that been it, had that been the end if that was the end of my show or whatever, I'm good. I'm really good. I've made my amends. At that point, I had not made my amends to Randy yet, but I had made my amends. I'm doing that now. I had made my amends. I was good with my family and my friends, and everything's good. And I could not have said that, not too long before that. I'm grateful for this meeting. I'm grateful that you had me here tonight, and that's all I have. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Let's thank our speaker again, Eddie. We welcome you to return next week and encourage the newcomers to keep coming back. I have asked